In this video, I will show you how to use Algebra Tool. When you first open Algebra Tool, you will see something like this, but there will not be anything up here because you will not have created any problems yet. To create a problem, click on New Problem, and it will open up the problem. You have these buttons here, and if you click these buttons, it puts stuff at this cursor here. You can hit the backspace to backspace that cursor. You want to type in your equation or system of equations using this cursor here. If you want to use the keyboard built in or paste something in, you can click in this box here and type, and it will type up there at the same time. But the reason we have these buttons is because with this keyboard, getting to things like the equal sign, you have to hit these two buttons first. Let's go ahead and type in an equation. We need to create numbers, so we can do this. When we create a number using the number editor, it will put the number here and put in a yellow button just like these. So you click the number and it types it at the cursor. Our equation is 1 over, to create a variable name, you click on the plus here, and you click there, and it will automatically put that where you can see it, and you type the name of the variable, you hit done, and you click on create variable name. Okay, x minus, we want a 2. Okay. Plus 3 over x plus 3 equals 4, the 4 over, and then on the denominator, we actually need two different expressions multiplied together. So we're going to have to wrap that all in parentheses to show that it's all on the denominator. The first one is going to be x minus 2. The second one is going to be x plus 3. But here we have a multiplication. In Algebra Tool, all multiplication must use the asterisk. The asterisk represents multiplication. If you were to try to write this multiplication without using the asterisk, when you go to this Action tab, it will tell you that you have a syntax error, and it will highlight where this first character that is invalid occurs. And it's right here. We need to put an asterisk there, and we can either backspace all those, or we can go right in here. Place the cursor there, go to the third page where the asterisk is, and type the asterisk. Alright, now that we have all of this entered, this is our equation we're going to solve. We'll go to the Action tab, and the Action tab will allow us to perform algebraic transformations on this equation or system of equations. Right now we only have one equation, but Algebra Tool supports more than one. Click on the Action tab. Alright, we have a long list of algebraic transformations we can perform on this equation. And we will manipulate this equation by clicking on these buttons, and we will click on these buttons many times and reduce the equation to an equation that is solved for x. So the first thing I would do to solve this is to clear the fraction on the right hand side, because by multiplying by both of those things, it will also clear the fractions on the left hand side. To do that, let's use the golden rule of algebra, which is one of the types of transformations. You can see it says the type here, and then all these that follow are of that type. So with Algebra Tool, it suggests a bunch of things you can do with the golden rule of algebra. But you cannot type in your custom thing, not in this version of Algebra Tool. The one we want is this one here. Okay. That looks kind of long, but we should be able to cancel on the right-hand side. Find the cancel transformation. There's not necessarily any order. When it lists transformations, the types of transformations do not necessarily occur in any order. Okay, we canceled on the right, it left a 1 there. Whenever it cancels a multiplication or division, it leaves a 1. Whenever it cancels addition and subtraction, it leaves a 0. And you have to explicitly remove that just by, you can click on remove 1 or remove 0 for 0. So now we have this mess on the left. Okay, we need to, first of all, get rid of those parentheses there and get rid of that parentheses there. Let's remove those parentheses. And now we need to distribute these multiplications into these parentheses here. Let's start with this one. Here we can cancel. Let's remove that 1. And we can distribute the second multiplication. Here it is. Now, we want to cancel this with this. But there's this in the way. Algebra Tool will not trigger the cancel transformation unless the things to be canceled are right next to each other. To get these to be right next to each other, we need to use the change order transformation. Click on this to change the order. And now they're next to each other. Now we can click on cancel and remove that 1. All right, we're now near the end. Remove the 1. Remove some parentheses. No, remove parentheses. Distribute. Get the x terms next to each other by changing order. Let's combine those numbers. We need to combine the like terms. In order to do that, we need to use reverse distribute followed by combine numbers. Reverse distribute, combine numbers, remove parentheses, golden rule of algebra, moving the 3. We want the 3 to be added to both sides. Combine numbers on both sides. Remove that 0. Divide both sides by 4 using the golden rule of algebra. Change the order on the left. Combine numbers, remove the 1, and there's a solution. So that demonstrates how you would use the golden rule of algebra to solve an algebraic equation for a variable. Now that we've solved this equation, let's look at some of the other features Algebra Tool has. Click on the History tab. Here we have a list of all the transformations we made in order. If you ever type something in using the Insert tab, that will be called a manual change in the history. Here we typed in the equation. Okay, we started from scratch and made the equation. We use the golden rule of algebra, cancel, remove 1. We scroll down, and it goes down pretty far. We made a lot of transformations down to the solution. Suppose we made a mistake somewhere, and we decided we want to go back to a previous state of the equation. We can click the Restore button and restore whatever state. Restore actually puts a new transformation at the end of the list called Restore. We can restore to anywhere, including really, really long places like that. What's under the Info tab? It's just a list of all the transformations that Algebra Tool can make. Combine numbers, change order, remove parenthesis, distribute sign, distribute, cancel, remove 0, remove 1, golden rule of algebra, reverse distribute, also called factoring, substitute. And substitute allows you to solve systems of equations, more than one equation. What's the back button do? It goes back to the list of problems. Alright, let's look at the settings. There's just one setting. It is this switch which defaults to off. If you flip the switch on, it will allow that cursor to be more places than just the end. It adds these two buttons here, and if we hit those buttons, we can move the cursor. We can also click and put the cursor wherever we want. Right? If we click, it puts the cursor there. So why would you want that to be turned off? And the reason is, what if I put x there? It thinks x4 is a variable name, so put the cursor after that. It does this because the text above the tabs is determined by the text in the input box. And x4 is actually a valid variable name in Algebra Tool. It cannot put the cursor between the x and the 4 because it can only put the cursor between symbols and x4 is just one symbol to it. That's why it defaults to off. There's not a way to delete problems. If the number of problems goes so long with off, you can just scroll down. You can scroll down. The newest problems do appear at the bottom currently. The new problem button also always appears at the bottom. Suppose we were asked to simplify an expression. Let's suppose we were given this expression, 2 times x plus 3 times x minus 1, and we were asked to simplify the expression. Well, if we go to the Action tab, there's nothing there. That's because Algebra Tool requires an equal sign to have any actions under the Action tab. It can only operate on equations. So if we want to simplify an expression, all we have to do is add it equal to something. It doesn't matter what it's equal to, because all we need is the equal sign. That way we'll have actions. So now we can simplify the expression. We can just distribute, combine numbers. We can reverse distribute, combine numbers, and remove parentheses, and there's the simplified expression. Now let's solve a system of equations using Algebra Tool. And to join equations in Algebra Tool, you need to use AND. This symbol was selected to represent a logical AND, but this is not valid syntax in Wolfram Alpha. In Wolfram Alpha, you will have to replace the ampersand with a comma or semicolon. It was chosen for Algebra Tool with the hope that someday Algebra Tool might support Boolean algebra. This is a system of equations. This is not a linear system of equations because x is multiplied by y. In fact, there are two solutions to this. Now, Algebra Tool cannot actually find the solutions, but it can get us pretty far. So let's try to solve this as far as we can. Let's solve for y. Let's say we were asked to solve for x. So let's solve for y, and then substitute that into the first equation. Let's solve the second equation for y. Let's move this term to the right-hand side of the second equation. We need to use change order to get this term next to that term. This one right here. Okay. And we need to use cancel, remove 0. Divide both sides of the right equation by 3. Change order to get the 3's next to each other. And cancel. Remove 1. Now the second equation is solved for y. When an equation is solved for a variable, you'll get this substitute, allowing you to substitute the expression for the variable into the other equation. To be solved for a variable, the variable cannot have parentheses around it. It cannot have a minus sign in front of it, but it may have a plus sign in front of it, because Algebra Tool likes to put plus signs in front of things. Let's substitute y into the first equation using the substitute transformation. Now let's solve the first equation for x. Distribute the division by 3. Distribute the multiplication by x. We need to combine some numbers now. So Algebra Tool puts a lot of decimal places in when you do this kind of thing, so let's just leave the 8/3 there. But we want those x's to be next to each other just to make it look more natural. Here we go. And I would normally put the highest order term on the left. And then we want an equation of the form polynomial equals 0. Cancel. Now we have an equation of the form polynomial equals 0. Algebra Tool cannot bring us any farther, but we can take the equation and we can copy it into Wolfram Alpha. Let's paste what we copied. And let's hit the equal sign there. Wolfram Alpha will chug out the answers. Scroll down. And here's the solutions. X equals 1 and x equals 3. So Algebra Tool did most of the work, but it couldn't actually solve the quadratic for x. So once you have the quadratic in standard form, you can just copy it into Wolfram Alpha. What are some of the limitations of Algebra Tool? Well, Algebra Tool does not support exponentiation. So that's why you have to write, if you want to write x squared, you have to actually write x times x. Algebra Tool does not support the x squared notation. You cannot write a 2 for x squared. You cannot write trigonometric functions. Well, you can write functions, but it doesn't have transformations for them. So let me show you what I mean. If I want a function, I have to explicitly write it. Sine of x. That's a trigonometric function, but Algebra Tool can't do much with that. It can't do any transformations regarding trigonometry. So if you want functions, you can write them in there, but it can't use it can't use trigonometric identities for you. It cannot do calculus for you either. It cannot do anything above basically Algebra 2. But it is good for solving systems of equations if that's what you need to do. Another limitation of Algebra Tool is that the golden rule of algebra transformation, let's make a full equation here so we can have it show up for us. Okay. It gives you suggestions of what you might want to do. Sometimes what you need to do will not be one of those suggestions. And in that case, Algebra Tool's transformations are not going to allow you to solve the equation. There is a website version of Algebra Tool as well. winklemantanner.github.io/algebra tool. Okay. This is the website version of Algebra Tool. One of the coolest features is this slider. It changes the color. This is the input box. You type your equation in here. It does not allow spaces. And each transformation that can be made will appear as a button in one of these categories. And the biggest feature this has that the mobile app does not have is custom golden rule of algebra. If you click on this, you can now enter a custom operator and expression. So let's say I want to divide both sides by 5. The operator is a division operator, and the expression is 5. And it will make this button. If I click the button, it will perform that transformation. So I could enter any operator and expression that I wanted. I do not have to use the suggestions. That's the end of this tutorial video.